All right. Hello, everybody. Good morning from Canada. I hope you're all doing well wherever you are in the world. I'm having a nice Wednesday morning here. I've got my coffee, I've got my English lesson ready to go for you, and I am excited for this lesson. First of all, if you're new here, if this is your first time on my channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button below. I'd love to have you as a subscriber here. Subscribers are always welcome. And I want to let you guys know, for those of you who are familiar with me, I have a brand new email course available. The email course is called Fighting with Dragons, A Guide to English Confidence. It's all about communicating confidently in English. And in the course, I challenge people to rethink the idea of English confidence and to try to start thinking about communicating confidently in English in a different way. So the link is in the description of this video. It's entirely free. Check it out. It's an email course that happens over about 3 or 4 days. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. So today we're talking about how to quit your job in English. And Taylor is already advising us in the chat room to not quit our jobs. Taylor's saying, don't quit your jobs. Satawat is here. Hello, Satawat. Dima is here. Precious Madel Santos, hello to you too, Muds. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. I've got a great lesson for you, and here is what we're going to do. So, how to quit your job in English. There we are. So, one, we're going to learn the most important phrase for quitting your job. There's really a single phrase in English that you'll hear repeatedly when it comes to this topic, and I'm going to teach you this phrase, and I'm going to tell you about a time when I had to quit my job, and I'll use this phrase as an example. We're going to complete a short little writing workshop. So I asked some of my members I asked them a question in Jacob's English Club, and I asked them to write about if they've ever had to quit a job before. So we're going to look at what one of my students wrote, and we're going to correct her writing. And number 3, we're going to learn the word conducive. This is a really fantastic English word to know. You can make some pretty complicated sentences with this word, and you can sound pretty smart using it. So it's a nice one to know. Excuse me. And we'll practice that at the end. But to get started, I want to ask you guys, have you ever had to quit a job before? Is it something you've had to do? I assume that most people have had to quit at least once in their lives, although I'm not really sure. I've had to quit many jobs in my life. I'm curious to know if you have ever had the experience. For me, and I think for many people, it can be quite an awkward experience. You develop a relationship with your boss and with your coworkers, and things are going well, and then all of a sudden you have to leave, and it can be quite uncomfortable. So let me know in the comment section if you've ever had to quit a job before. Tell me a little bit about what the job was, what your experience was there, and tell me about how you quit your job. What did you say? Try to translate what you said in your native tongue into English and let me know. I'll come back to the comment section in a little bit here, but let me tell you a story about when I had to quit a job. So I used to work at a golf course, and I worked on a few different golf courses, but I worked at this one golf course for about 5 years, and it was really an amazing job. I would go to school during the winter, and then when school ended for the season, I would go to the golf course and I would work there. And it was awesome. They paid me really well. I loved the early mornings, and I loved getting off in the afternoon. So we would work from 5:30 in the morning until 11:30 in the morning, and then I had the rest of the day to do whatever I wanted, and it was a lot of fun. But at the end of the 5th year, and this was right after I graduated school, I decided that I wanted to move to Korea to start teaching English, and I applied for this program that looked interesting to me, a program to teach English in Korea. And when I got accepted, I had to quit my job. It was something that I had to do. I was expected to work at this golf course until September, but I had to be in Korea for this program in August. So I was speaking with my friends and they were asking me all about what I was going to do. One thing they said to me was, have you given your notice yet? Have you given your notice yet? So to give one's notice, that is a phrase that you'll hear a lot when it comes to quitting your job. And what it means is, have you told your boss that you're quitting yet, basically? My friends asked me this, have you given your notice yet? And what they were asking is, have you told your boss that you're leaving, that you're going to Korea? I remember one day I finally worked up the courage to go tell my boss. This was probably about a month before I had to leave to Korea. And I went to my boss and I was all nervous. And I said, I'm sorry, I have to do this. I have to give my notice. Now what that means is I have to quit my job. I have to leave. I have to give my notice. This is how you say it in English. I have to give my notice. It's been fantastic working here. I've really loved this job and I love everything about it, but I have to take another opportunity that came up. It's going to be good for me. I probably stumbled like that and said something like that, but that's how I quit my job that one time. So I've got a question for you. On average, I would say, the appropriate amount of time to give here in Canada, the appropriate amount of notice to give your employer is about 2 weeks to a month on average. So you could say to your boss, I'm giving you my 2 weeks notice, or I'm giving you 1 month's notice. And what that means is at the end of 2 weeks or at the end of 1 month, I won't be here anymore. So I'm curious to know, and I'm sure it's different for every job, but in your country, how much notice should you give? How far in advance should you tell your boss that you're leaving your job? In Canada, it's about 2 weeks to 1 month. So you tell your boss that you're quitting, you give your notice, and then you still work for another 2 weeks. And the idea is that your company can find someone to replace you during that time. They can prepare for the fact that you won't be there anymore. So let me know. I'm curious. I don't know anything about what other countries and cultures are like in this area. And let me come back to the chat room here. Okay. Satawat is already feeling sleepy and hopes he can get through my lesson. Well, Satawat, if I could give you a sip of coffee or pour some coffee into your mug from Canada here, I would. Satawat says, I never quit my job, but now I'm thinking about it. I wish to live in an English-speaking country. Well, Satawat, I know a little bit about you, and I know that you worked really hard to have the current job that you have now in Thailand. And I imagine that must be weighing heavily on your mind. That sounds like a very difficult situation and a difficult decision to make. So I wish you the best of luck in whatever you choose to do. In the short term, though, getting some sleep maybe would help. But of course, I hope you stay for the lesson. Taylor says, I had to quit my job because I wanted to do volunteer work in Bangladesh for 10 days. Wow, very cool. I hope that was a nice experience, Taylor, doing volunteer work in Bangladesh. Many of my students are from, well, a few of my students are from Bangladesh, and they're very pleasant people, so I'm curious. I'd like to visit Bangladesh now after having met some people from Bangladesh. Tiet is here. Hello, Hanis. Taylor, I had to give my notice at the last minute. Great sentence, Taylor, and sometimes you have to do that. I mean, in Taylor's situation, Taylor wanted to go to Bangladesh, and so he had to give his notice at the last minute. And there's nothing you can do sometimes. Sometimes you want to quit and you want to do it properly, but an opportunity comes up and you just have to take it. And hopefully your boss will understand. Huang Vu says, yes, I did. I was an accountant. It was a boring job with my ex-boss. I wrote him a letter, but I can't say the truth that I didn't like the job and him. Right. Yeah, well, a lot of the time I don't think you need to say the truth when you're quitting your job. And we're going to look at that in a moment here. I'm going to show you guys what one of my students wrote. And in this letter, you'll see that she maybe tells her, she's maybe a little too honest about her opinion and about how she feels about her job. A lot of the time, I think, even if you don't like your job, even if it's a bad experience, the best thing to do is just to say, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate the fact that you let me work here for so long. It was great. I'm just moving on to a new opportunity. And you can be polite like that, even if your experience at one job was negative. I think a lot of the time, almost all of the time, the best thing to do is just to be polite and to move on. Of course, sometimes our pride can get in the way. Hashim, hello to you too. Grace says 1 month and 2 weeks in Japan. Wow, that's a long time to give notice. Stephen Hunt says 1 month or till they can find someone who can be replaced. Wow, so 2 weeks is a little short then. So Tawat says, in my workplace, they need an employee to give notice 1 month in advance. Okay. Anis says, from my experience, I wasn't a permanent staff during that time. I had to give notice about 1 week. Well, 1 week's not so bad. So it seems like most people are similar. It's either 1 month, around 1 month would be best, ideal. That's how much notice you should give. Again, to give notice in English is the most important phrase to know when you're talking about quitting your job. That's how you would say it to your boss. I have to give my 2 weeks notice. I have to give my 1 month notice. And Shridan says, I have an experience about giving notice, but I think if someone wants to quit a job, to do it in a fine way, to remain in a good relationship with boss. Yeah, exactly. So trying to maintain a good relationship, trying to, in English you could say, trying to leave on a good note. Leaving on a good note means leaving the relationship in a positive way so that both of you are okay with it. I think that's true. So let's move on, you guys. We're going to look now at what one of my students wrote. So yesterday I asked my students to tell me about a time when they quit their job. And this is what Ruxana wrote. So Ruxana is a student of mine in Jacob's English Club. And if you'd like to know more about that, you can go to my website or jacobsenglishclub.com. There are a few members watching right now, which is pretty cool. And it's a great place to be. So this is what Ruxana wrote. And we're going to go through and we're going to correct her writing afterwards. So she says, I never quit my job till now. It's my first job, which is still I am doing. But sometime resignation thought come in my mind because I'm getting frustrated from office politics and non-productive nature of work. So if I will quit my job, I will say that I am unable to continue this job because this work experience is not beneficial for me in the long run, and environment of office is not very conducive for doing job properly and development of personality. And especially behavior of colleagues is not good with each other, and there is too much leg pulling policy in the office. I am sorry, I can't doing job in this office. So let's go through this line by line and kind of rephrase what she wrote. The first thing you could say is you would want to change the tense of this first sentence here. I've never quit my job before. I have never quit my job. If you say I never quit my job till now, it sounds like you have already quit your job, but it seems like she hasn't. She's just thinking about quitting her job. I've never quit my job before. My current job, you could rephrase the second sentence. My current job, so the job I have now, is the only job I've ever had. But sorry, my voice today is just not great. Perhaps it's all the coffee. But sometimes I think of resigning because I am getting frustrated with office politics and the non-productive nature of this job. Now, the one thing I should say is non-productive nature. You'd want to be a little bit more specific here. What exactly is not productive about this job? What is happening here? You would want to be a little bit more specific. So I think I'm think of resigning. Sometimes I think of resigning because I am getting frustrated with. Most often in English, we get frustrated with things. That would be the preposition you want to use. And now we have a nice big long sentence, and we're going to focus on this last word at the end here, conducive. Great word to know. So if I quit my job, I will say that I'm unable to continue this job because it is not beneficial for me in the long run. Long run and long term mean the same thing. Long term is probably a little more formal. Long run is a little more casual, but they mean the same thing and they're not very different at all. And the atmosphere at the office is not very conducive to a positive work environment. So this is one way that you could rephrase what Ruxana wrote to sound a little bit more natural here. She's speaking about how in the long term, this job is not great for her, and the atmosphere, the environment at her office is not very conducive to a positive work environment. And again, we'll speak about the word conducive in a moment here. The behavior of my colleagues is especially bad as there is too much joking around in the office. Now, Ruxana wrote leg pulling. Leg pulling is the same as kind of teasing or joking around. If someone is pulling your leg, that means they're teasing you, they're joking with you. It's a little bit less common, I would say, than joking around. You could say there's too much leg pulling in the office. It would sound maybe a little more natural to say joking around. But if you wanted to use leg pulling, that would be okay too. There's also a difference here. Notice how I put especially instead of specially. Now, these two words are very often confused by English language learners feel confused about these two words. I believe there's a video on my channel. It was an Ask Me Anything session in which I talked about the difference between especially and specially. So you can check that out on my channel. I am sorry, but I can't do this job in this office anymore. Okay, so I've been talking for a long time. I know. Let's look at the word conducive, and then I have a question for you, and then I'll hang out in the chat room with you guys. So, conducive. Conducive means making a certain situation or outcome likely or possible. Okay, so here's an example. Exercising regularly and eating a balanced diet is conducive to good health. If you're exercising regularly, if you're eating a balanced diet, then it's likely that you will have good health, or it's more likely to produce good health, right? Here's another example in the negative. Sitting for 10 hours every day is not conducive to good health. It's not favorable for good health. It's not likely to produce good health. The school is trying to create a classroom environment that is conducive to learning. Of course, if you're a school, you want your students to learn inside of the classroom, and you want to set up your classroom in a way that is conducive to learning, that allows learning to happen. So in order to do this, you need rules for behavior. You need to think about how to organize the classroom layout, where to put the desks and everything like that, and how the students are going to sit, where they're going to sit. You want to organize everything in a way that is conducive to learning. The coach wants to create an atmosphere in the locker room that is conducive to winning. So the locker room is kind of like the classroom, not really, but a little bit, kind of like the classroom for athletes. When athletes are changing and preparing for a game, they're in their locker room and they're interacting with one another, their teammates. So the coach wants to create an atmosphere in the locker room that is conducive to winning. So this could be perhaps teammates talking about what they plan to do on the field or on the ice if they're playing hockey, whatever. This could be just a positive atmosphere where teammates are laughing together and joking and being friendly with one another. That could be an environment or an atmosphere that is conducive to winning. Okay, so I promise I'll stop talking now. This is the sentence that I want you to complete. Blah, 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 blah. Fill in the blank is conducive to happiness. What is conducive to happiness? Let me know in the comment section. Oh. Oh my God. How did that happen? I am sorry, everyone. Why is that not working out? It appears that my internet is not really working that well. Let's see. Sorry, everyone. This is why I should look at the comment section more often. Ah, shoot. All right, everyone. Well, I apologize for that. If you're still watching right now, let's see how many people are still watching. Yes, okay. If you're still watching right now, I apologize sincerely. I did not realize that my screen was not working well. But I hope you understood the word conducive. So I was looking at something, a totally different screen than you were looking at. Anyways. Okay, good. So Stephen Hun and you guys were following me a little bit. So thank you for that. I apologize for the technological fart there. I don't know why that happened. That's never happened before. But thank you for being patient with me. And thank you for still watching if you're watching. Stephen Hun says, living in a good note with everyone is conducive to happiness. So yeah, and I would probably say, Stephen Hun, to rephrase that, having good relationships with people is conducive to happiness in life. So if you have relationships that you feel fulfilled in, relationships with your family and your friends and your partner, then that is good relationships and that is conducive to happiness. You're more likely to be happy in life. Okay? And Taylor says, no worries. It was great listening practice. Right. Yeah, well, I'll have to check and see what happened there because I don't know what happened with the screen. But if you guys followed me with conducive, then try to tell me about what is conducive to happiness. So we had a great example from Stephen Hun there, who said living in a good note with everyone. So living in harmony, you could even say, having good relationships with everyone is conducive to happiness. You could say that. Vanos asks, how much time do I need to spend to improve my English? Well, it takes a long time. And I mean, if you want to improve quickly, then you spend more time doing it. If you want to, it takes a long time though. So I'm hesitant to put a time frame on things. I don't think it's different for everyone. And Grace, thank you for that. So here's another example of conducive. Drinking a lot of coffee before going to bed is not conducive to sleep. So imagine that it's maybe 7 p.m. your time. I know that it is for many of you right now. I know Satawat was saying that he was tired before. You could say drinking a lot of coffee right before bed is not conducive to sleep. It's not likely to, or it's not favorable if you want to sleep well. That's not a good thing to do. Hope Ma says, believing in yourself is conducive to happiness. Yeah, that could be. That's a great sentence. Nice one. Taylor Huang says, doing what you love is conducive to happiness. Yeah, a lot of the time it is. I think that's important to consider your professional life too. If you're doing something that you love in your professional life, that's definitely one part of the equation, let's say, of happiness. So that's a nice one, Taylor. And it seems like you guys understand this word pretty well, which is great considering that the whole the screen was a little messed up before. Satawat says, I need you to show up more often on YouTube, and that would be very conducive to my happiness, you could say, to Satawat's happiness. Well, Satawat, I'll do my best. Speaking of that, I'm trying to do 2 days a week on YouTube now, one pre-recorded video and one live lesson. Next week, though, there won't be a live session because I have a special guest visiting me for a while, so I will be busy doing that. I'll have a pre-recorded video for you guys, hopefully, and if you're in the club, everything will stay the same. There's nothing different there, but I won't be live next week on YouTube. Precious Model Santos says, learning English is conducive to happiness. Well, I'm happy that you feel that way. Vinos asks, fluency in English is when you can understand every single word. Well, Vinos, if you consider me to be a fluent English speaker, I certainly don't understand every English word in the dictionary, so maybe that answers your question. I actually did a couple of months ago, I did this charity event where the event was reading every single word in the Oxford English Dictionary, and I volunteered to do some reading for about half an hour. And there are tons of English words that I don't know, so I would definitely say not. And Grace says, it's muds. Ha ha ha, yes, I know it's muds. Tiet says, helping poor children for working and thinking is conducive to happiness for others and me. Yeah, I think you're right, Tiet. So here's how I would rephrase that. Helping less fortunate children, you could say, is conducive to happiness. You could say conducive to my happiness. All right, so we are approaching half an hour now, and that is about all the time that I have for you today. So if you're watching, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I will be live again, not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that on YouTube. I'll also be releasing a few videos that will be pre-recorded before then. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a fantastic week and a nice Wednesday evening or afternoon or morning if you are on this side of the world. And take care, everyone. Sorry for that lapse. Whatever happened with the technology there, I have to go investigate that now. But thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for staying. And I will see you soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.